You're listening to the Mezzo Guild podcast.
بس أنا لازم أحسه الأول عشان أقوله.
아직 나의 어색한 한국말이 짤따рат하고 지적하진 말아주세요.
Я хочу с тобой серьезно поговорить.
Really good news, Farragut. No, I can quit this Maldinas here, sure.
Language learning made simple. A lot of people who read my blog express an interest in translation as a profession, as a career. A lot of people who come to my blog who are really into language learning, want to learn a language so they can become a translator, or they have a language that they're great at, that they're fluent at, and they want to use that to earn a living. And translation is the big question for a lot of people. And I've written fairly extensively on translation because it's something that I have done. It's something I've worked as, and still occasionally will do some translation work in. Arabic to English, that's my language pair. Translating from Arabic into my native language, which is English. So I guess I'll share how I got into it. I'll share some of the problems I had and try and sort of dispel some misconceptions for you if you're interested. Now, I got into translation several years ago, quite a few years ago now, when I met a translator in a coffee shop. She was sitting at a table in a coffee shop working, and I took an interest in what she was doing. And I was already conversationally fluent in Egyptian Arabic at the time. And people used to say to me, "Oh, why don't you just use your Arabic skills to earn some money?" And, I'd never actually considered freelance translation as an option. I never fully understood that. And honestly, I had such a, I guess I thought that I had to be like perfect in Arabic to be a translator. I thought I had to literally be perfect to be able to do it. So I used to say to people, look, I'm not perfect. I can't do it because I'm not perfect. So talking to this French translator in a cafe actually opened my eyes to the fact that I was able to do it. That translators don't translate into their target language. They don't translate from their native language into, or good translators rather, don't translate into another language that is second to them, a second language to them. They translate from that language into the language that they know that is their native language. So for me, it was Arabic into my native language, which is English. Now, I was attracted to her lifestyle, first of all, more than anything else, because she was so free. It was a business. She could set her own prices. She could, she could sit around in a coffee shop and drink coffee all day and translate things. And to me, that just sounded amazing. I loved that freedom she had, and that the fact that she was able to just be her own boss and work with what she was passionate about, which is languages. So, the point about only translating into your native language is a very important one, first of all. No matter how fluent you are in another language, you're always going to make errors if you translate into it. So it doesn't matter if you are so totally fluent in a second language, you shouldn't translate into it because you're always going to make mistakes. You're always going to, doesn't matter how good you are, you're going to make errors. So while it definitely requires that you have a very, very advanced level in the language to begin with, because you really need to capture the nuance of what's being said in different texts, the real skill of a translator is not just in how well you know the language, and it's not just about your language skills. The thing that people don't understand is that translators are excellent writers. It's about being a great writer. So for me personally, there were some extra difficulties because, I was fluent in Egyptian Arabic, which is a spoken variety. It's not written. And because I wanted to translate into Arabic, which is, from Arabic into English, the texts are in modern standard Arabic mostly. So for me, that meant that I had to then adjust. I had to switch over and really brush up my skills on a standard formal dialect. Now, you should only ever translate content that you have expertise in. this is another misconception, something that a lot of people don't realize, is that if you don't have a background in an area, in a specific work area or academic area, then you should not try and translate that material. For example, if you don't have a background in law, you should not be translating legal documents. If you don't have a background in medicine, if you're not an experienced doctor, for example, or just if you're not qualified in any way in the medical field, you should not be translating medical documents. If you've ever read a legal document, for example, even in your own language, that document is really hard to read, and it's not something that you can reproduce unless you've been trained to do that. But a translator who has qualifications or some kind of background in law is going to be able to easily write something, write a legal translation, because it's their area of expertise. And they've seen it a lot before, so it's easy for them. If you're thinking about getting into translation, think about one or several areas of expertise that you have. Something that you're trained or experienced in. You don't have to have a degree in it, as long as it's a field that you have experience in. Maybe it's I don't know. Let's say you were a carpenter once before. You want to translate documents related to the building industry. Because you've worked in that field before. You'll be encountering things that that you're familiar with. So I'll give you an example. A while back, I did a marketing translation. I translated a marketing document for a coffee company in Europe, and I confidently took that job because a long time ago I worked for a coffee company when I was living in the UK. So I'm actually very knowledgeable about coffee products, about machines and the industry. So it was something that I knew how to word. I was very confident with wording that document. So I took it. So take something that you know very well and specialize in it and let that be the field of translation that you work in. So how do you get started if you are conversationally fluent in a foreign language? Well, the only way to get better at anything is to do it often. You just remember that translators are excellent writers, first and foremost. So just because you've got killer foreign language skills, just because you're amazing with your foreign language skills, or you're extremely fluent in a language, that doesn't mean that you're going to be a good translator. You could be a crappy translator. You could have near native fluency in a language and still be the most pathetic translator on earth. I'm serious. But let's just suppose you're not. So my advice is to keep on expanding your vocabulary in subject matter related to your specialization. Okay, use tools like Memrise, Anki, whatever flashcard tools you've got, but expand your vocabulary constantly. Read up on translation theory and methods, which will help you improve. Familiarize yourself with important issues related to creativity and flexibility in translation, translation ethics. It's a really important thing. And most importantly, just translate everything you can get your hands on for practice. Just practice translation. Just find stuff and translate it. And read. Read often in your specialization. Read a lot. Because great writers are also great readers. Your writing skills improve the more you read. So, the issue of creativity in translation is a really big one. It's a really big issue because there is always going to be times where you cannot literally translate everything word for word. Sometimes you need to strike the balance between literal translations and keeping true to the mood of the original text. So that means that sometimes you're going to have to use a completely different word, a completely different expression, or a completely different sentence, so that you can carry the same effect which was intended by the original author. One thing that I often do is I go to news portals where there are usually tabs at the top of the website, like technology, health, business, politics, and I just find interesting articles to translate on various subject matter. That's just another way that I practice. And one thing you should do is to begin building your own glossary of terms. Build your own glossary. This is something you can keep with you and refer to. There are many names of organizations, abbreviations that you're going to come across in foreign languages, in your target language rather. You're going to come up against them repeatedly, and you probably won't recognize them at first. Start to make a list of these things, and it will be a handy reference for you later on. Now, in a lot of different places, like Australia and America, there are translation accreditors. So you have NATI in Australia, ATA in America, and they actually sell practice exams, practice translation tests that you can actually order online. I've done it with NATI. I ordered their practice tests, and if you're going to work in those countries, you'll need certification from these people. So that it's a great way to get practice before you go for those accreditation tests. But every country is different, so you're going to have to do some research to find out what the rules are. Now, there are also associations that you can join, and they will actually help you network and find you. They'll help you connect with jobs. They can be a great way to get your foot in the door at certain places. And they organize workshops as well that help you increase your skills and find work. You should contact translation agencies online. I do that I used to do that all the time, and they would send me jobs, and usually before they'll work with you, they'll get you to do a test translation just so that they know that you're the real deal. There are other websites like pros.com, proz.com, and Translators Cafe. And these are basically just forums full of jobs and advice, and they're full of competition, but they're another good source. The good thing is, once you do a couple of good translations for an agency, you build up trust, and then they'll start sending you more and more work. You become a trusted translator for them, and they'll come to you first when they have something. So that's something to be aware of. You might find it difficult at first. They don't want to work with you, or they don't want to send you too much work because they gotta get to know you and build up that trust. But afterwards, it changes. And then you should get a hold of some CAT software, CAT. This means computer-assisted translation software. There's SDL Trados, which is really essential for a lot of jobs. I used to use this free one called Omega T on Linux, which is totally free and open source. And the reason why you use these tools is that they actually save you a lot of time. If you have a massive project, they'll actually speed up your translation work. So really important. The paid tools can be very, very expensive, but if you're a serious translator, you need it. You need these things. So and the question, does translation pay well? Well, it can pay well, but in my case, in my experience, it didn't pay well, which is why I don't really do it that much anymore. I've always taken jobs in drips and drabs. So I'm signed up with a few different agencies online, and they'll send me small jobs here and there. And usually for the amount of work you have to do, I would say it's not really worth it if you can do better. But I was never really active at marketing myself to big clients. You're a business person. You're treating yourself like a business, and you need to market yourself. And so that's another skill that you need to develop if you're going to be in freelance translation. Is that you need to be able to market yourself as a business and put yourself out there. Now, I never did that. So I probably missed out on a lot of really big lucrative jobs, especially being in Arabic, which is not as competitive as, say, French and Spanish. So basically how it works for me, or how it has worked for me, is that I just get an email from an agency they'll send me an email and say, look, we've got this job and it's due at this particular time or date. Are you interested? Very simple email. They'll set an offer for the job, which will be based on the word count or a flat rate fee. And then it's just a simple matter of me accepting the job or not, completing the translation and emailing it back to them before the deadline. That's it. And then a few days after that, I get paid electronically. For me, there are no phone calls. There's no face-to-face contact whatsoever. It's actually a very antisocial job. Like you could very easily be a translator for the rest of your life and never really have any kind of contact, like phone contact with people. So, I mean, if you're the kind of person who just wants to sit in an office and not talk to anybody and get sent jobs, that's an option for you there. But it was frustrating for me. It was stressful because I was always indoors with it. And because of the lack of social contact, I found it incredibly tedious. I like to be around people. I like to be talking to people and meeting people. And, translation, I didn't like being stuck in front of a computer screen with a head in a dictionary all the time. It was just tedious. For some people, that sounds amazing. For me, I didn't want to keep doing it. So that's why I don't really do it much anymore. The money that I got from it was enough for me to easily travel around the world. I could live in various places, usually places that weren't too expensive. So, if I wanted to set myself up in a country like Australia or in Ireland, I would have to take some big jobs. I would have to be aiming for those lucrative translation jobs. But because I kind of just went for the drips and drabs, it wouldn't have really been enough to sustain me if I was going to live at home. But traveling around the world on your own, on a budget, yeah, sure, great. So, and as a final note, I had to register for tax purposes as well. Like you're a business. You're a business. If you're working as a freelance translator, you're in business, and you need to think that way. So, if you've got a rare language, if you're fluent in a language that's not very popular, you can really set high prices on your translations, on your translation work. If it's a very competitive, popular language, like French or Spanish, then you're going to be up against a lot of other people, and it's going to be harder. So that's really the advice that I've given on my site, and I hope that helps you. If you've got any questions, feel free to get in contact with me. I'd love to give you some advice. You can send me an email at mezzoguild.com/contact. I'd be happy to answer any questions about translation for you. That's it for today. I hope that helps.